strike or submit, why for God's sake strike. Strike until you win. Rise up and strike. If you're too cowardly to fight for your rights, there are enough women in this country to come in and beat the hell out of you. If it's slavery or strike, I say strike until the last one of you drops into your grave.
No one knew how old she was, but she was often heard to say how she was born in 1830 in the sweet County Cork. And she crossed the foaming billows till she landed in New York. Mother Jones, the miner's angel, must be treated with respect. She's an old-fashioned lady, and you never would suspect that this gown and this bonnet would fill a rich man full of dread. She's the most dangerous woman in America, they said.
Mary Harris was a poor Irish famine immigrant, a young school teacher and dressmaker who drifted away from her working-class Toronto family to pursue a life in the United States. Mary Jones was the wife of a working-class man and the mother of a young family until plague took her entire family, took them all, left her a middle-aged widow, making ends meet, sewing dresses in Chicago. And it was in that booming Shock City, where hundreds of thousands of people came from overseas and from the American hinterlands, a city that doubled in population every decade. It's here that she came, where all these people come for a fresh start, and that she recreated herself and became somebody new, that great American tradition of recreating yourself.
There's a number of things I've got to say. Obviously about my own background, I'm a fourth generation miner. Never worked anywhere else but as a coal miner, and a very, very proud coal miner at that. From communities that really built themselves, communities that policed themselves, communities that brought into them communities a discipline and a really nice place to live and bring up families. All of that's been destroyed, obviously, in a few years, very few years.
When I told my 92-year-old mother that I was coming to Cork, she told me that, that her grandfather had come from Ireland and then settled on a farm in Wisconsin. But she wasn't sure where he came from over here. We made some inquiries with distant relatives who told us that her grandfather, Cornelius O'Keefe, was born somewhere in Cork County in 1860. And I hope to find out where. Of course, such a discovery makes this visit very special.
I've been speaking about Orgreave Truth and Justice quite a while, but what I'm finding I have to do is to talk about Old Strike and indeed my entire mining career to fit Orgreave into that, because not everybody understands why we come to be there that day, why 7,000 or 8,000 lads gathered in a field on one particular day. And there's a few myths about mining industry and about that strike that I want to try and explore today.
I think I can claim to have been one of his closest friends. Our relationship was not always easy. If you scan the later volumes of his diaries, you'll find that I am occasionally denounced as being suspiciously Blairite. And if you look him up in my diaries, you will find that I occasionally returned fire at what I regarded as his later drift into impossibilism.
We are an organisation worldwide. We represent 6 million members throughout the world in aviation, road transport and in maritime. Our primary objective came about 100 years ago when there was a blockade in Amsterdam where they forced the crew to handle the cargo to the detriment of the workers in Amsterdam. And a strike ensued, and there was a blockade of the port on the basis that the dockers done their best to make it impossible for the ships that were handling the cargo to leave. The UK owned the ships at the time, and they sent their best minister over to negotiate along with horse-mounted army personnel to see could they dismantle the blockade that went on there with the dockers.
They allowed Connolly to speak at first, and they waited until he was finished with his address. But Councillor Healy, with his mob, challenged Connolly and said, "Are you against religion?" And Connolly says, "No, I'm not." But there's then a bit of a row between them, and in the end, somebody shouts up the mollies, get him! And the crowd moved towards Connolly and attacked him. The police are called, and in the end the police prevail on Connolly to leave. But as he's moving away, he shouts out to the crowd, "I'll be back next Thursday." And he was as good as his word.
As sections of the trade union movement grew increasingly hostile to the support given by constitutional nationalists for recruitment to the British Army, militant trade unionists, socialists and Republicans began to coalesce around a common platform of resisting recruitment.
The first and most obvious and most visible is the number of people and families that are becoming homeless. My figures are from Dublin, where the crisis is most urgent, but the same crisis applies to Cork and to all the other urban areas in Ireland as well. In the first 3 months of last year, 2,300 adults sought emergency accommodation in Dublin. In the first 3 months of this year, that number had risen to almost 3,000, an increase of 30%.
And so chief constables had acquired autonomy, effectively, and they lent their militia to each other. And so on that day, there were militia from various different counties in England, all combined into an army. And they clearly felt that they have been given authority for the whole of this strike, but particularly on that day, to wage war on the miners.
I don't know where to start about Hillsborough, really, because it's a 24-year fight, that, as Jed's just told you. It's been 24 years of hell, actually. We're going on to our 25th year. To me, it just seems like yesterday that I lost my son, and I'm sure Sue feels the same about her brother Graham. All the families have had a struggle now for all of these years. We knew when Hillsborough happened on the 15th of April 1989 that there was going to be a huge cover-up.
I'd like to pay a small tribute to the Mayor's contribution down in the hotel. I think he hit the nail on the head and certainly brought home some frightening statistics about how the wealthy in this world are creaming everything off, and I think we're living in very, very dangerous times. I think we've got conflict all across the world. We've certainly got industrial struggle in most countries in the world. And in Britain today, we're facing a tremendous battle. I think the last election in May was one of the most important there's ever been in my lifetime, and of course Labour got humiliated in that particular election.
Well, she was an incredible part of the labor movement of the U.S. scene from 1890s through 1930 when she died. She inspired so many people to take action, to fight oppression in her time. And she continues, I think, to inspire people to think past the immediate conditions of their life and to see themselves as fighters. And that's certainly what she means to me and to a lot of people in Illinois, where she is buried, alongside miners who fought for a living wage and other things that brought about a decent standard of living in the United States.
This festival is a landmark event in Mother Jones history. It's the first time that young Mary Harris and the old hellraiser Mother Jones have been publicly linked and celebrated. It's no surprise to me that there has been such fabulous publicity because she's with us, and she was always great at getting publicity. You just don't have to, you just put her out there and she would get it.
This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me the endless skyway. I saw below me the golden valley. This land was made for you and me. Come on. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me.
She didn't become an activist, like, all of a sudden. She went to these meetings and she began to realize she was one, that there were other people like her. As a human being, as a poor person, there's a social Darwinian feeling that I get what I deserve. That I was a bad mother, I could have done more for my kids, that I live in a poor country, that whatever it is that makes us afraid to stand up. And something, when she went to those meetings and she verbalized, she said, I learned that poverty is not a sin, nor wealth a reward for moral goodness.
Come all you good workers, good news to you I'll tell, of how the good old Union has come in here to dwell. Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? My daddy was a miner, he's now in the air and sun. He'll stay with you fellow workers until the battle's won.
She was a woman operating in what was completely a man's world, the mining community in particular, and in the trade union movement.
I'm particularly delighted as Lord Mayor to be here today to launch the exhibition and the festival honouring Mother Jones, who without doubt is one of the most famous women in America, and I suppose unfortunately has had very little recognition of her here in her own native city. But hopefully with the fantastic work of the organising committee of the exhibition and the festival, that will change.
I've travelled this country's the man is a mile. I've travelled through Ireland and Scotland and all, and the name I go under's Bold Air and Go Bra. Me balderall diddle-I diddle-I-day. One night in Old Reekie as I walked down the street, a saucy big Pole as I chanced for to meet. He glowered in me face and he give me some jaw, saying, when come ye over from Mare and Go Bra? Me balderall diddle-I diddle-I-day.
The lack of recognition of leading figures in the trade union movement, such as Mother Jones, is nothing new, as over the last number of decades, trade union figures have virtually been written out of the history books. Recently, I was delighted to have been asked to be involved in the promotion of another great Cork figure, Alderman Tyke Barry, who again has been largely forgotten for his tremendous work in organising workers here in this city, and indeed for his other work.